Hey students, welcome back to e-learning platform of GS College of Commerce, Wardha. This lecture is for the BCom semester 2 for the subject Business Economics. So, in previous lecture, we have discussed with the syllabus and the paper pattern of this subject. In today's lecture, we are going to start with our first unit, that is market structure. Under this unit, we would be starting our first topic, that is meaning and classification of market. So let's begin. See, whenever we are talking about the market, so I'm sure everybody has heard of this term market. Everybody of you must be aware of this term market. Even in today's world, you would find no person who is not associated with the term market or who has never heard of the term market. Even if you're going to ask a layman this question, what is market? So he can reply, the market is a place where the commodities are bought and sold. For him, the market would be a place. It might be like fish market, it might be like vegetable market, it might be like fruit market. But even that layman can understand what is market. But whenever we are talking about the economics, so in economics, the market is having the broader perspective. It is having the wider area. In economics, the market doesn't mean a particular place, but the whole area where the buyers and the sellers of a product are spread. Whenever we are talking about the market in economics, so here you will find market is not necessarily a place, but market refers to the whole area whereby the buyers and the sellers of a product are spread. For market, you do not need a physical place in economics. Like if you are ordering something from the Flipkart, so there, do you find some physical place? Of course, you won't find any physical place over there. What you do, you put order online, okay, and then the delivery boy comes and they deliver the product to you. It's not necessary that you are in Wardha, so you are ordering some product which are available in Wardha. You can get the product from any corner of the world. Okay, so this is how this online platform works. So it's also a kind of market in economics. So whenever we are talking about the market in economics, so it doesn't refers to a particular place. It doesn't take into consideration the concept of a physical place, but it takes into consideration the concept of the whole area where the buyers and the sellers of a product are spread. Now we will see some definitions of market given by different scholars. So first definition we will see is of Professor R. Chapman. What he says about the market? He said the term market refers not necessarily to a place but always to a commodity and buyers and sellers who are in direct competition with one another. So in his definition he is stating that in economics, market doesn't need a place. But what are the essential things in the market according to him? According to him, for market, there must be a commodity and there should be the buyers and sellers of that commodity. And those buyers and sellers should be there in the competition of one another, should be there in the connection of one another. So again, according to his definition, we can understand that in economics, market is not a place, but it's a platform where the commodity exists and the buyers and the sellers of those commodity exist, or there is the connection of the buyers and the sellers of that commodity by way of some platform. Okay, that is the market. Then another definition is given over here is of Eli. What he says about the market? So he says that market means the general field within which the forces determining the price of a particular product operate. So again he says that market is a whole area, market is a wide area whereby the buyers and the sellers exist, whereby a particular products exist and the buyers are making the demand of that product and the sellers are making the supply of that product. So this forces of the demand by the buyers and the supply of the sellers is used to determine the price of that product in the market. So in his viewpoint, market is a place whereby the product or the service exist, and the buyers and the sellers of that product exist, and according to the demand and the supply forces of the particular commodity, the price of the particular product is determined. So here, from the definition of ally, again we can derive a conclusion that market doesn't need a place, it doesn't need a physical place, it just needs a commodity and the buyers and sellers and the forces of demand and supply which can determine the price of the product. Okay, so this is how we can understand the meaning of market. Now we will move towards the next concept, that is classification of market structure. So whenever we are talking about the classification of the market structure, so it is classified on the different bases. Let's see what are those bases. First basis for the classification of market is on the basis of area. So on the basis of area, the market is categorized under the four types, that is local market, regional market, national market and international market. So whenever we are talking about the local market, so what is local market? Local market is a market which is confined up to a particular locality. It is a market where the sellers and buyers are driven from the same locality. Like if you are talking about the market of Varda, okay, so it is an example of local market, and the goods and the commodities which are being traded in the local market are generally of perishable nature. It may be fruit, it may be vegetable, it may be fish, etc. Okay, so these are the different types of perishable goods which are generally traded in the local market, and local market is confined up to a local area. The second one is regional market. Whenever we are talking about the regional market, or we are taking under consideration the concept of regional market, so it is having wider area than the local market. Okay, like if we are talking about the market, so it is confined up to a particular region. Like you can take the example of Vidarbha is a region, okay, and the trading is being taken place between a seller from the Varda and buyer from a Napur. So this kind of trade will come under the purview of the regional market. Okay, this is an example of the regional trade, regional market. When we talk about the nature of commodities which are being traded under the regional market, so it is perishable in nature, but when we compare it with the commodities which are being traded under the local market, so it is generally less perishable as compared to the those commodity. The example of the commodities which can be traded in local market is the food grains. Okay, the another one is national market. When we talk about the national market, so of course it derives buyers and sellers from the different area, different states of the same nation. The boundaries to the national market is entire nation. When we talk about the different products which are being traded under the national market, so it includes various consumer goods, various industrial product, various metals, etc. These goods may be durables or the non-durables in nature. Like if the trade is taken place between the seller in the Maharashtra and the buyer in Chhattisgarh, so it would be an example of national market. This type of trade will come under the purview of national market. The next one is international market. So whenever we are talking about the international market, so of course uh, it is the most wide market in terms of the classification on the basis of area. Okay, so international market is a market which involves the buyers and the sellers from the different countries. The boundaries to the international market are the world. It considers whole world as a single market. And nowadays we can see that due to the enhancement in the technology, due to the improvement in the transportation and the storage facility, communication facilities, it has easy to make the contact between the people residing in different areas, people belonging to the different areas. So of course all this plays very crucial role in international market. Like if you belong to India and you are producing some goods and services in India, and now you are exporting your goods and services to some seller who are residing in America, who is based in America. So it's going to be a kind of international transaction, and it will be coming under the purview of international market. So I hope you are clear with the different categorization of the market on the basis of area. Now we will move towards the next categorization, that is the classification of market on the basis of time span. So here again we have four types, that is short period markets, periodic markets, long period markets, and the secular market. So whenever we are talking about the short period market, so these are the markets which are confined up to a very short period. It may be a period of a day or few hours. If you talk about some village market which are there for a specific period of time, for a day or for the few hours, so these are the examples of the short period markets. When we are talking about the commodities which are being traded under the short period market, so of course we can understand when there is short period, so the commodity must be of highly perishable nature. So the commodities which are traded under the short period market may be fruit, may be vegetables, it may be milk, etc. So whenever we are talking about the short period market, so it's confined up to a very short period. The another one is periodic market. So whenever we are talking about the periodic market, so it's also having short period, but the duration of this market are generally larger than the short period market. So when we talk about the periodic market, so there is assembly of buyers and the sellers at specified places. Like this market can be found at village level, it may be found at semi-urban areas, or it may be found in some parts of the urban areas as well. So whenever we are talking about the periodic market, so it may be held weekly, it may be held fortnightly, it may be held monthly according to local traditions. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the periodic market, so again the goods in the periodic markets are also of the perishable nature, but it is less perishable as compared to the short period markets. The another one is long period markets. So whenever we are talking about the long periods markets, so these are the markets which are held for longer period than the short period markets. Whenever we are talking about the nature of commodities which are being traded in the long period market, so it is perishable in nature, but it's less perishable as compared to the commodities which are being traded in the short period markets and the periodic markets. The example of commodities which are being traded under the long period markets are the food grains, oil seeds, etc. Okay, and whenever we are talking about the prices of the commodities, how the prices of the commodities are being governed in the long period market, so again it is governed by the forces of demand and supply. Okay, the another one is secular markets. Whenever we are talking about the secular markets, so secular market is a kind of market which are permanent in nature. Okay, which exist for many years, which exist for long period of time, and therefore we call it permanent in nature markets or the secular markets. Whenever we are talking about the different types of goods which are being traded in the secular market, so it includes the machineries, the equipments, etc., which are durable in nature, which are not perishable in nature. So secular markets are those markets which are permanent in nature and which exist or continues for many years. So it was the classification of market on the basis of time span. Another basis for classification is the volume of transaction. So whenever we are talking about the volume of transaction, so again the market is divided into two categories under the volume of transaction. Okay, so first one is wholesale market and another one is retail market. So whenever we are talking about the wholesale market, So wholesale market is a market whereby the commodities are bought and sold in bulk. Okay, the trade is occurred in huge amount of goods and services. When we talk about the wholesale market, so these are the markets which occupies very important position uh, in terms of marketing chain. It plays very crucial role as it is a link between the production system and the consumption system. It serves as a mediator between the production system and the consumption system. So whenever we are talking about the wholesale market, so it is very important component of a distribution channel. Okay, because it serves as a link between the producer and the supplier. Okay, it helps in facilitating the trade between the producer of a commodity and the buyer of the commodity. It is a linking chain between the production system and the consumption system. So it's very important component of distribution channel. The another one is retail market. So whenever we are talking about the retail market, so it's a market whereby the goods are bought and sold as per the requirements of the consumer. When we talk about the transaction in this market, so it takes place between the retailer and the consumer, and the amounts of the goods or the services which are being traded in this markets are not so huge as wholesale markets. The in the retail markets, we find that the retailers buys goods from the wholesale market and sell it to the consumer in the small lots. Okay, so whenever we want to make the distinction between the wholesale market and the retail market, so the base of distinction between these markets are generally the buyers. If you talk about the wholesale market, so buyers in the wholesale market are generally the retailers or the businessmen who buys from the wholesale market and sells in the retail market. But if you talk about the buyers in the retail market, so they are the ultimate consumer, they are the end user of those products. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the retail market, so they are very near to the consumer, and they always deal in the small quantities of goods and the services. So this is how the market has been classified on the basis of volume of transaction. The another basis of classification is the nature of goods. So whenever we are talking about the nature of goods, so it is categorized into two parts, that is commodities markets and the capital markets. Whenever we are talking about the commodity market, so it is a market which deals in the material produced manufactured goods, and this goods may be the consumer goods, or they may be the industrial goods or the producer goods. Okay, the commodity market also includes the bullion market. Bullion market is a market which is associated with the dealing of the precious metals like diamond, gold, silver, etc. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the commodity market, so it is engaged in trading, in dealing of material produced manufactured goods, consumer goods, industrial goods, and it also consists of the bullion markets which deals in different kinds of precious metals. The another classification is the capital market. Whenever we are talking about the capital market, so this is the market which is also known as market for finance, and it is subdivided under the various types like money market, stock market, forex market, etc. Whenever we are talking about the money market, so money market is a market which is called as the market for short term securities. Here the different instruments exist which can be used for borrowing and lending purpose, and the maturity of those instruments are generally 1 year or less than 1 year. That is why we also say that money market is a short period market. The another base is the stock market. Whenever we are talking about the stock market, so these markets are generally there for the long periods of time. This market consists of various securities which is having maturity period of more than 1 year. It may consist of various securities like stocks, shares, debentures, etc. Okay, so whenever we are talking about the stock market, so these are the markets for the financial assets and The maturity period of this financial assets are generally long period, that is more than 1 year. The another one is forex market. So whenever we are talking about the forex market, so these are the markets which deals in various foreign currencies, foreign exchange, etc. Okay, so again these are the different classification of the capital market. The next basis for classification is the nature of competition. So whenever we are talking about the division of market on the basis of nature of competition, so it's again categorized into two categories, that is perfect market and the imperfect market. Whenever we are talking about the perfect market, so it is characterized by some specific features, like they are having large number of buyers and sellers. All the sellers in that market are dealing in identical products. They are using the most efficient methods of production. They are using the least amount of factors in the production process. So these are some characteristics which are found in the perfect market. But if you're going to see the realistic situation, so you will find that all these conditions does not exist in reality. Therefore we also say that the perfect competition market is myth, or it's a hypothetical situation. The another distinction is imperfect market. So whenever we are talking about the imperfect market, so imperfect markets are those markets which are not characterized by the features of the perfect market. It is actually a market which can be defined as a market with many producers offering different goods and services which are close substitute of the goods and services which are being offered by another producer. But the goods and services which are being offered in the imperfect markets are not identical. They are close substitute but not identical. So it's based on the basis of competition. Okay, so imperfect market is having different types like monopoly, duopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, etc., that we are going to see in further lectures. Okay, the another distinction which needs to be made is on the basis of modern classification. Whenever we are talking about the modern classification, so again the market is categorized into three categories, that is consumer market, business market, and the global market. So what is consumer market? So whenever we are talking about the consumer market, so these are the markets which specialize in selling mass consumer durables and non-durable products. When we talk about the focus of consumer markets, so they devote good amount of time in making attempt to establish superior brand image. So their focus is to maintain the superior brand image. When we talk about the different products which are being offered in the consumer market, so it includes shoes, apparels, clothing, and it also includes many household items like TV, refrigerators, sound system, washing machines, etc. So these are the different types of products which are being offered in the consumer market. The another one is business market. So business market is a market whereby the people who are engaged in some kind of business, they are the buyers and sellers in those markets. And when we talk about the different products which are being traded in this market, so it includes the raw material, it includes the fabricated parts, it includes the appliances, it includes the different equipment, supplies, and services that is used in further production process, or that is bought with the purpose of resale. The main focus of business market is to explain how their product will help the business in increasing the profit or reducing the cost. Okay, so this is the main motive of business market. So whenever we are talking about the business market, so there the consumers are not the end users of the product. Okay, the another and the last classification is global markets. Whenever we are talking about the global market, so it is same as the international market, and global market consists of global buyers and sellers all over the world. If you talk about the different brands like McDonald's, Pizza Hut, etc., so these are the example of the organizations which are having the global reach, which are dealing in the global market. So in global market you will find the buyers and the sellers all over the world. As entering into the global market is a very big decision and requires the huge amount of investment. So for entering into the global market, the uh, business has to take into consideration many factors, like which country is suitable for the product, which what are the economic condition of that country, what is the internal and the external business environment, what mode needs to be adapted for entering into the country. So these are the different decisions that needs to be made while entering the global markets. Okay, so these are the classification of the market on the different basis, and in next lecture we are going to discuss with the further concept. Till then, you guys keep studying, stay safe. Thank you.